brands win when they're part of culture. It's not about a party anymore, it's about impact. But you can't buy into culture, you have to earn your way into culture. Experiential is strategy. The right experiences can move the brand needle in a way that no ad can.
Hi, and welcome to Production Value Matters. I am your host, Matthew Byrne. And today's guest is Brook Jay, a pioneer in the world of experiential marketing and the founder of All Terrain, the first female-led full-service experiential agency in the U.S. With over 25 years in the industry, Brook has redefined what it means to connect brands and consumers through meaningful, measurable live experiences. Under her leadership, All Terrain has delivered award-winning campaigns for global brands like Ferrari, PepsiCo, Airbnb, and Nike, proving that experiential isn't just impactful, it's a strategic ROI-driven powerhouse. Brook is also an active mentor, board member, and advocate for animal welfare, women's rights, and entrepreneurship. Her perspective blends bold creativity with grounded business sense, and we're thrilled to have her with us today to talk about the evolution, challenges, and future of experiential in the broader events industry. Brook, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Matthew. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So you launched All Terrain at a time when experiential marketing, quote unquote, didn't even exist. What inspired you to take that leap, and what did you see that others didn't back then?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I saw an opportunity to create brand experiences that actually meant something to people beyond ads or simple promotions. I think at the time, no one was calling it experiential. It was 98. But I knew that if we could make people feel something about a brand, they'd remember it, they'd talk about it, and they'd come back for more. So I trusted this instinct and I trusted culture. Not just marketing language. And I built All Terrain around that idea.
Cool. And so fast forward 25 years, experiential is now a huge piece of the marketing mix. What's
Yes.
kept you hooked throughout that evolution?
I think it's because it's alive, culture shifts, expectation shifts, and experiential forces brands to evolve with those shifts. It's no longer about events anymore. It's about community, it's about content, it's about relevance and conversion to sale, which is something that's a hot topic with us all the time. And that challenges me and keeps me inspired.
Hmm. Excellent. And so you mentioned that experiential is sometimes seen as a quote unquote nice to have. What's your take on why that perception still lingers?
Yeah, I think it's because many marketers and people with marketing budgets still see it as event production instead of
Hmm.
a strategic driver of awareness, loyalty, and sales. So it's not about a party anymore. It's about impact.
Yeah, absolutely. We hear this quite often, right? Like, and you bring up, marketers who, like, sort of see their gigantic budget. They're putting a lot of, anecdotally, a lot of money and a lot of investment behind what I would call sort of the digital communications world, right? Where Google will send them analytics of this is how many impressions and this is how many people looked at your ad and potentially clicked, and did that lead to a sale? Where, I think that the industry is still struggling to find a way to quantify the exact numbers based on the ROI. And so it's interesting that as I said, it's still perceived as a nice to have, and as you just said, like it's event production. It's not necessarily an avenue for marketing ROI. So, do you feel like there is something that we as an industry still struggle to demonstrate that value, and why that's because it's still perceived as a nice to have?
Yeah, I think that a lot of agencies that are still kind of couched in that event production experiential world haven't been able to fully prove the ROI. We call it the ROE, the return on experience, but they're not working at the same strategic level that I would say a company like All Terrain is. So we have mastered the framework of measuring our programs. We can, through the use of QR codes and incentives, we're able to track the time we meet somebody in the field or meet somebody inside a campaign to the point of sale. And I think
Absolutely.
we've been able to establish those processes throughout the years by doing something that a lot of experiential agencies don't do. We insist on sitting down with both the sales and marketing teams of our clients to understand how we build a fully impactful campaign that does deliver conversion or does deliver sales.
Absolutely. And so can you share a moment or a campaign that helps shift that perception for a client when they finally, got it?
Sure, sure. There's a great and maybe an unexpected example of how one of our experiential strategies had direct impact on revenue. It's is taking it a little bit back us in time a bit, but it was really the shift for us and our clients to think about experiential differently. So we were doing the opening of the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas. We were an AOR for them, both pre-opening and post-opening. And before the property opened, we did very traditional experiential stuff. We did high impact brand activations in key feeder markets, driving awareness, buzz, building a database that didn't exist. They were brand new at the time. And we also managed their legendary grand opening event that helped establish the brand's positioning right out the gate. But after about a year of being open, a new challenge emerged. The rooms were sold out. You couldn't get a reservation. You couldn't get into the nightclub. But if you went through the actual casino, it was sometimes like a desert. There was the floor was often empty. This didn't make the ownership, which was at the time Deutsche Bank, happy. So the client side, the client team, the CMO, and all the marketing team threw up a jump ball, and All Terrain came back with a campaign that may have seemed unexpected from an experiential agency, but at its core, it was all about the power of experience. And the campaign was driven by an insight that visitors to Vegas, when they're on their way there, they have two things pre-planned. But once they're on the ground, they will engage in about 7 unique experiences. So we wanted to figure out how to impact casino traffic, and in doing so, we needed to find that intersection between the time they left and before the time that the guest was on the ground in the noisiest place in the world. And so, using that insight, we found a way to engage with audiences that were coming to Vegas in flight. It was a white space that didn't exist. So, long story short, and after many, many complicated conversations with airlines, we nestled in with United, and on every flight coming out of a hub and flying directly to Vegas, consumers on those flights were gifted a pack of really cool cards, bespoke, a very good premium. Inside were offers and things that people would keep even if they didn't want the offers. So mints, phone wallets, etc. Long story long is the fact that we created this campaign. We call it the Cosmopolitan In-Flight Experience, and it was wildly successful. In the first 6 months, we gifted 600,000 people promotional items from the Cosmopolitan. We saw 70,000 people come to property within the first 6 to 8 weeks. And more so, we were able to track the ROI because once they went to the property, because they had great offers like, free drinks, free buffet, but a majority of the offers were gaming related. So now we can track from the time the consumer gets the package inside the flight to the time they show up on property, sign up for their loyalty program, and we can track spend throughout. The campaign paid for itself within the first 6 months. It was the highest performing out of home campaign that existed on behalf of Cosmopolitan throughout the company's first 3 to 4 years. And it changed the perception of where experience and experiential marketing can take place. We also invented a new media channel on board United that didn't exist. So I think, for us, that was a pivotal moment where you think about traditional experiential marketing as being IRL, and this was definitely IRL, and the flight attendants were our influencers in this situation, or they were our advocates or brand ambassadors. And it wound up really being a case study that won tons of awards. It was disruptive, it was breakthrough, but it also positioned experiential in a totally different light.
And so how do you make the business case for experiential earlier in the planning cycle, especially
Yeah.
with non-marketers or budget-conscious execs?
Well, we tie every activation back to the metrics that matter to the C-suites. Is it acquisition? Is it the long-term value of the loyalty? Is it earned media? Is it trial? Is it CRM growth? And we position experiential as a content and a community engine, not as an expense line. So I think we make the case early on, and we work in lockstep with our clients to make sure that we're all rowing the boat towards the right KPIs.
So you've talked about experiential agencies getting a seat at the table early on. What's changed in the last 5 years that's making that possible?
I think that clients finally see that brands win when they're part of culture and not just media plans. Experiences drive that. Also, digital and social gave us the tools to scale those moments and prove value. So I think that's what's changed in the last 5 years.
Planning a multi-day event or conference? Then you know how chaotic managing show content can get. Version issues, last-minute changes, and the post-show scramble to send out IMAG recordings. ShowSync is built to fix that. It's your central hub for managing presentations, media, and video recordings across your event, without the mess of cloud folders or lost file links. With ShowSync, your show content stays organized, your crew stays in sync, and your post-show video files are delivered faster and cheaper, so you can move on to the next big thing without chasing down drives. Learn more at showsync.ca, because your content should work as hard as you do.
Enjoying the show? Don't miss a single episode. Follow Production Value Matters wherever you get your podcasts. And for bonus content, tools, and event insights, head over to productionvaluematters.com and subscribe. Stay sharp, stay inspired. Production Value Matters.
The idea of brands win when they're part of culture. And I
Yeah,
think that's a really important statement that as an industry as a whole, I think we sometimes don't quite get right in communicating to the broader market of the value of these activities. Going back to my earlier statement about, you're a CMO and you've got $1 million budget and you're spending 60% of that on digital marketing because there's a quick and easy metric that comes back. Like
right.
Google's whole ecosystem is built there. But can I ask you a side question about,
Sure.
you know, let's delve into that statement of brands when they're part of culture, which seems like an intangible. I think my question is more about how are we proving that and how should we be communicating that to the broader market that isn't just a really like what I got excited about when you said that was like that's a really great way of putting it that brands win when they're part of culture. But what does that mean and how are we proving that?
Sure. So you're proving that when the consumer becomes the storyteller for the brand, right? Where brands misstep is that they try and buy into culture. They try and follow trends or get ahead of trends, but you can't buy into culture. You have to earn your way into culture. And you have to show up in these micro communities. You have to become part of the building of the culture instead of trying to buy your way into it. And so when you see success happening is when the consumer, the content creators, do the brand storytelling for you. They become your advocates. They're using their language, they're using their platforms to talk about the brand in ways that are meaningful and authentic. And that's when other people listen. That's the word of mouth value. That's where culture and cultural fluency really shift a brand into relevancy versus them just being a topic of a moment. Or did you see that stunt they did? Or, did you see that new celebrity collab? That's pretty cool. But those are fleeting moments where, a steady drumbeat of showing up in culture in ways that are really meaningful to the communities that they're trying to impact. That's the beginning of a really successful relationship between brands and consumers.
Hmm. So, what does it take to earn that seat consistently? Are there things production partners should be doing to better support that process?
Yeah, I think strategic thinking, fluency in the client's business goals, really like coming always back to the client's business goals, showing up with ideas that drive impact, not just production decks, which we love to do, and collaboration. It takes a village. So you really have to own your worth in order to have a seat at the table. And I think there is a lot of re-educating about how experiential has shifted. We used to be just about tours and event production, and now we are full stack. We have to be thinking about the long tail of the campaign, the how it starts maybe in digital, then you meet in an IRL moment, but then there's this whole content creation that's happened that needs to be involving influencers in order to get reach. I mean, the whole game has changed, right? So I think it's just making sure that the IAT that you might be part of, the client is seeing you and hearing what you have to say, and you've got proof of concept, which is always very helpful. Good case studies and good ROI on past projects really are the way to visually and statistically show a client the value of what experiential is today.
So ROI again is always ROI for experiential is often debated, but you've proven that it's measurable. What's your framework for tying activations to sales or business goals?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we're always tweaking it, right? So, but I would say that we build it backwards. We define the business goals first. Then we design the experience around that, then map the KPIs. We track trial, CRM opt-ins, sales lift, and earned media, all tied to a funnel. So we really kind of, like I said, we build it backwards. We start from,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that might be one way that a lot of organizations sort of look at it in reverse, right? They start to say, well, and as you said, like that fleeting moment of like a cool stunt or a cool celebrity collaboration or something that like, they perceive it as we did this, now we're going to track the data and see what the results are. And, I like that idea of like, no, we start with the business objective first, and then we try to figure out what's going to get us there.
Yeah.
Right? So, and you'd be surprised how many people are not thinking that way. Now, how have you seen advances in data tracking change your team's approach to production and planning?
It's made us smarter. We design experiences to generate actionable data, not just impressions. So QR codes, as I mentioned earlier, mobile engagement, CRM catcher, it's all part of the plan. And, tools like AI and everything like that have made us just so much smarter and facile when it comes to thinking through data and data tracking.
And so do you think that there's any metric that people should be paying attention to that often gets overlooked?
Yeah, one thing that we keep talking about and really we're studying a lot inside Alterna is the lifetime value. We know that experiences drive deeper loyalty and higher value customers, and that's where the long-term ROI lives. I don't think people in the event world are thinking about it, about what's the long-term value of this moment. And how is this great work and these great moments and experiences affecting the long-term value of the business? And so I think that's a metric that I really, just in the last couple of years, have really started to focus on.
Okay, so when working with other partners and your sort of ecosystem, what makes someone an extension of your team versus just a vendor?
That's a great
In your
question, too.
mind?
You've got great questions, Matthew.
Thank you.
I would say shared accountability and curiosity. I love when a partner, even if it's a fabrication team or a lighting and sound company, whoever it is, they will ask, how's this going to drive the brand goal? We brief our partners on what's the, net outcome goal of whatever we're doing. So when they're on the ground with us or in planning or in strategy and they're asking us, how does this drive the brand goal? Maybe this would work differently. Those are the ones we build with. Those are the types of partners we just really appreciate that they're thinking out of the box, because that's what we pride ourselves on, is not taking the road most traveled. We want to find new and exciting ways to push this industry forward in general, not to mention our clients' initiatives.
Absolutely. And so, how do you ensure a creative vision and executional excellence stays aligned, especially across like complex multi-market activations?
Yeah, it can get clunky. I think a clear creative North Star, real-time collaboration, and great producers. Let's not forget why we're on this call, right? Production
Yeah.
matters. Production value matters, Matthew,
Thank
because
you for the shameless plug. I appreciate that.
shameless plug, I'm giving it to you all day.
Yeah.
Because strategy only shines when, execution delivers, right? You can have the greatest ideas in the world, but if they don't show up and there's not flawless execution, then you know, all is lost.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, have you had to rethink your production process or team structures to meet evolving expectations of clients and consumers recently?
For sure. I think everybody's feeling this, but, today we build content capture into every
Hmm.
activation. We structure
Hmm.
teams to support real-time storytelling, and long tail engagement. So it's not just an event day. We're thinking about it, as we said, from this long tail campaign strategy where you may start in digital, you may come across us in the real, out in the wild, and then we want to make sure that expenditure has a long tail to it. That there's a long lead and long after effects that we can track.
Yeah, I mean, we always say that your live event is a content machine, right? That
Yes.
you should be leveraging that value, and we still get resistance to this day because I think especially post pandemic when everything was on camera and everything was essentially a TV show.
Yeah.
People have been rebelling against that and saying, but I want more live, real life experiences, and preaching. I think I'm preaching to the choir when I say this, but like that's your audience in a place and a time for a reason, but that doesn't mean you can't leverage all of that value out into your pipeline in that sort of long tail campaign outlook. So I praise you for that.
Yeah.
So what's one trend or shift you're closely watching as we look ahead to the rest of 2025?
Well, just building on what you were just saying, we keep blending the physical and digital experiences. AI is accelerating this at mass speed. Audience want to co-create. They want to be personalized experiences. They want to be able to share those personalized experiences. And brands who enable that win. We are very focused on micro communities and niche marketing. I think we're going through this blowback from you know, using big celebrities as influencers and really highlighting the heroes of our communities and using their platforms to push brand awareness and authentically introduce brands into lifestyles in ways that feel very authentic, instead of just a little bit more forced or expected.
Hmm. And so, if you had if you could wave like a magic wand and change one thing about how brands approach live events, what would it be?
Yeah. I think you and probably half the people you've interviewed on this wonderful podcast would say I'd shift mindsets from thinking about events as line items and seeing experiences as full funnel drivers of culture, content, and commerce.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what advice would you give to a young marketer trying to convince their team to invest in experiential?
I think that's another great question. I think that, young marketers need to start with their audiences and what they already care about. Build experiences that they'd want to be part of, and even if your brand wasn't attached to it. So that's key. I think, you know, especially with some of the behemoth types of clients we work with, there's a lot of noise around a lot of data and a lot of, marketing touch points. And I think at the end of the day, we're all people and brands need to look deeply at uh, not a consumer, but as a person and something that they would care about. So that's what I would say. I would say that start with what your audience cares about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's one thing you wish more production teams or event partners understood about the strategic role of experiential?
Yeah, that experiential is strategy. That it's not just decor logistics. The right experiences can move the brand needle. I think that in a way that no ad can.
And so finally, let me know what's keeping you inspired and motivated in this fast-paced industry right now.
I'm constantly inspired by culture and how fast it moves, how communities form and evolve. Our job is to help keep brands keep pace, so it never gets boring because it's always evolving.
So, Brooke, thank you very much for sharing your perspective today. Your voice is a vital one in the ongoing evolution of this space. And thank you so much for taking time with me today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And for those listening, if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Production Value Matters. It really helps us put this content in front of people just like you. And you can always find out more insights or upcoming episodes at productionvaluematters.com. Brooke, again, thank you very much for joining me today. It was such a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you, Matthew. It was great.
Production Value Matters, the business events podcast, is brought to you by Byrne Production Services. To learn more about Byrne Production Services and how we can achieve your business goals, head over to byrneproductionservices.com. Thanks for listening.